What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the show. I'm Timmy Foodie. Today we're going to do a nice little carrot and courgette soup. I was just going through the fridge, like clearing out some stuff and seeing what I had in there to go and do shopping. And I saw I had some nice, these are like really nice organic carrots, and I had a few courgettes left. And I was like, oh, I may as well use them up. So what can I do? I'll do a soup. And now I haven't got a huge amount of ingredients, but it'll be enough for a reasonable amount of soup. I've just got some veggie stock here, which is just a powdered veggie stock. I don't have anything else in because I just thought about doing this. I was like, oh yeah, that would be sweet. So I'm going to, oh, I peeled that badly. Little bugger. There we go, got him. So yeah, that's just a powdered vegetable stock, about a litre and a bit. The quantity I'm not quite sure of. I've got a half an onion that I had in the fridge as well, so I'm going to use that. Clove of garlic, I'm going to leave that whole. And then a bit of olive oil, salt, pepper. I've got some ground coriander, which is great with carrots. And I got some mixed herbs. Normally I just use thyme, but I haven't got any of that, so somehow I haven't got any thyme. But and then I got some butter here as well, because I'll probably pop a bit of that in there. But if you're vegan, then don't put the butter in. You don't need it. I just quite like it. So if you're veggie or meat eater, then that's fine. But for the vegans, you can do all of this, but don't do the butter part. So yeah, that's kind of it. So what I'm going to do is just smash up these carrots. Now you don't need to, let's get these fuckers out of the way. You don't need to really chop these in any real fancy way. I've just topped and tailed them, and I'm just going to go through them just like this, maybe with the bigger end cut in half, and just, yeah, that's kind of all you need to do, because we're going to whiz this soup up. I'm going to just, it doesn't really matter how you chop them. I mean, you can just be really rough with it and just, you know, smash through them like this. And we'll do the same with the courgettes and with the onion. Like, you don't really need to worry too much, because we'll cook these down so they're soft enough to whiz up anyway. So yeah, pretty basic in terms of chopping stuff. I mean, even if you had like a food processor, you could just use that, you know. Just whack it all through like one of the chopping functions on it. But yeah, entirely up to you really. So if you wanted to use, like if you had a homemade stock in your freezer, like if you made my little chicken stock recipe, which you can find here. We'll see if I can figure out how the technical side of that works. But yeah, so otherwise I'll put the link up at the end of the video. So if you've made your own stock, then great, whack that out the freezer, get that warming up in a pan. And then we'll add it in when we do our stock stage. Otherwise, just a chicken stock or a vegetable stock, or, you know, one of those cubes, like an OXO cube or whatever. I use the Macel chicken stocks and veggie stocks, because even the chicken stock's actually veggie and vegan friendly. Like, it doesn't actually have any chicken in it. And it doesn't exactly taste like chicken, the chicken stock. I mean, it's quite a nice stock, though, in terms of the flavours it puts in there. And there's not too much crap in there, so you don't have to worry about it too much. You can get the salt-reduced one if you're a bit worried, but, you know, it's up to you. So, now a little beeping motherfucking... Here we go. So let's get this pan on. Now, you wouldn't normally use a pan this low to make a soup. You'd want a deeper pan. But for the sake of this video, so you can see into the pan what I'm doing, I've got a lower pan. The only reason I say that is when you get your whizzer out and you whiz up the soup, it will go everywhere if you don't have, you know, the height of the pan helps to keep the stuff in there. So I'll just have to either be really careful, but you could use like a food processor or a blender or something to whiz your soup up. But I don't really like using those when it's this hot, because the steam and stuff in it can cause explosions and shit, which you don't really want to mess with. So I'll chop those up in a minute. We'll get this pan on the heat. I've got this on like a 7 on this. Maximum's a 9, lowest is obviously a 1. So kind of medium high heat. We'll let the heat come through that while I let that happen with this onion. Again, you don't really need to be too kind of, you know, accurate with this. Just kind of chop it up roughly, just, you know, something like that, you know, nothing too fancy, because we're going to whizzle this up, so it doesn't matter. Same with the garlic. I want that in there whole to do that thing I was talking about a few recipes ago, that you just let the garlic cook in there and fry off, and it just sort of sizzles away and gets a bit of colour, and it will soften and then it will whiz through into the soup anyway. So it's just a nice way to get garlic flavours into your dish without the risk of burning the garlic, because if you really finely chop it up and put it in at this stage, it's so easy for it to cook really quick and then burn, and you just don't really get the flavour out of it. So this is just a really good way of avoiding that issue, and it's just going to take a little bit of colour on all sides. That's just kind of, you can hear it, it's just really gently sizzling, but I'll probably actually get the onions in here pretty soon actually, and I did sort of roughly, when I peeled it, I did smash it a tiny little bit, just it kind of releases some of the oils in it, which will help to get the flavour out of the garlic and into the oil that we're doing now. And I'm just swizzling it around just to kind of get some of that flavour out of it and infused into the oil, and that's pretty good. You should be able to sort of smell a little bit of garlickiness, and that's that's probably enough for me. So I'll just get in our onions, throw some on the floor, very nice. And actually I'm going to just put the carrots straight in with it and throw some of those on the floor as well. You don't have to throw them on the floor, but you probably will, because carrots like to go everywhere. If you have a little doggy and he likes running around the kitchen while you cook, then he'll get some nice delicious bits of carrot. If you don't have a doggy like me, you'll have to pick them up yourself. So that's in the pan, give that a little toss around. Bit of salt and pepper, pinch of salt. Don't overdo the salt, because this stock has got a bit of salt in it, so for the moment I'm not going to put in too much. A few grinds of pepper, and then we will put the coriander in a minute, but not just yet. And that's awesome. So that's probably hot enough. I'm going to just knock that down to a 5. I don't want these to like take on any colour really. I just want them to soften down and start releasing all their nice flavours. You don't really want any like caramelisation on them or anything, so just be wary of the heat. Hopefully you can hear me over the sizzling. So what I'd also say is I've been playing around a little bit with my camera settings and lighting and stuff like that. So I think I'm finally getting where I want to be in terms of angle, lighting, settings on the camera, which is a whole world of complications, so I don't know if it's right, but we'll see. It should feel a little bit sexier than the other earlier videos are a bit harsher with the light, and my settings are a bit different, so we will see what the quality is like when I edit it, I guess. So yeah, let's see what happens. It shouldn't be quite as bright, but it should still be nice, and well, anyway, we'll see. It's all a bit of a experimental process and stage at the moment, but over the next few months I should have all that locked in, and then I want to leave it at a set kind of angle. So and I know some people are saying, oh, we want to see you, Tim, but I don't know how to get me in the shot and the food in the shot big enough so you can see what's going on. And at the moment, I only have one camera, so we just have to put up with this for the meantime. If we can get some followers and some, get the channel making a bit of money, then I can start to get more cameras and all that sort of jazz. So the courgettes, you can just see I'm just sort of really roughly chopping up again like the carrots. Again, the size of it doesn't matter too much, because we're going to whiz it up, but that's good. Let's just let that cook down for a bit. So once we're at this stage, you've got everything, you've got the courgettes chopped, you've got the carrots and the onions cooking down. What I want to do is cook this for about 5 or 6 minutes before we do anything else, and just let the onions soften, go a bit translucent, and let the carrots cook down a bit and soften a bit. You can feel when you're stirring it, they're quite hard, because obviously just put them in. But as they start to cook down, they'll just start to soften a tiny little bit. And that's, when we're at that stage, we'll put the courgettes in and then all the other bits and bobs. So we'll be back in, let's give this about 5 or 6 minutes and then we'll be back. Okay, that's had about 5 minutes-ish. I actually remembered I had some fresh thyme in the garden. So I managed to, I think it's just normal thyme. So I've got some of that. So that's going to be great. So with this, I mean, the little kind of strands at the end are quite soft and edible. So most of this, it's not that twiggy. So I can probably just chop it all up, really. I mean, you could try and pull them off and put them in, but it's a bit of a faff. So just check there's no hard sticky bits. And this is all the end bits, so they are pretty soft. So I reckon we're going to be all right with that. So we'll get to that in a minute. So let's pop in our courgettes or zucchinis if you're feeling fancy, and put those in here. Again, just a tiny little bit of salt for them, but again, not too much. Little pepper. So it's starting to stick on the bottom a bit, so I know that's a tiny bit hot. So I'm just going to knock that down by 1, but because we're adding in more ingredients, it will sort of take some of that heat, but I think that's pretty good. So again, with the courgettes, we're just trying to cook them down, let them soften into it. Now you could do my thing where I cook each ingredient separately and then add it in, but for something like this is just supposed to be a kind of a bit of a quick, rusticy thing to knock up. So, you know, you don't really want to go to the extra faff of doing all that, really. And this is going to turn out really nice. Like, we're putting the courgettes in there because when you cook them in a soup and then whiz them up, they add a creaminess to the soup, which is really great. And then as we soften them down and they take on a bit of colour, they get a nice little bit of sweetness in there as well. So yeah, let's let them do that. And then I might just get some of this stuff. That's going to be okay. So you can kind of, I don't know if you can see what I mean, these sort of twiggy bits you don't really want. But this sort of stuff here is fine because this is all kind of, the stem is actually quite soft at the top. So you just need to figure out which bits are okay, and anything that's not, you can just drag your fingers down like that, and then you get the thyme off it essentially. So yeah, pretty sweet. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. There's a bit of a trick to it, but super fragrant though. And thyme and carrots, there's something about that combo that's just so good. So I probably won't use those mixed herbs that I got out instead, because this is going to be enough. Again, we don't want a huge amount of this in there because it's quite a strong flavour, and we don't want it to like overpower anything. So yeah, that's a good amount. And then if you wanted to now, you can just run the knife through just a bit, and that's perfect. And I should say, freeze-dried thyme is absolutely fine for this. So if you've got those, or you've got that in a little jar, then that's it's absolutely fine. Oh, I've got a cup of tea over here, bollocks. Hang on. That's probably going to be ridiculously stewed, but never mind. So that's cooking down. I should say it's the morning here. I just had an urge to cook this. And this sort of thing, like just seeing what's in the fridge, and then you know, I wasn't going to cook anything, but I just, because I had it in the fridge and I was, is that safe? Hang on. Yeah, because I was just clearing out the fridge a bit, and you know, it's always good to do because you never know what's going to be in there. Something might have gone off or whatever. And these carrots were in there for a week or so, so they needed using up. And I don't really like wasting food, so turning stuff into a soup is a really good way to use up any odd veggies that maybe look like they're on the turn and you know maybe not looking quite so good. So it's, yeah, it's a great thing to do. And then because I had carrots, courgettes, half an onion, I was like, yeah, boom, that's a soup. So yeah. Oh, that's good tea. Although that'll put hairs in your chest. Fucking hell. Add some water to that. That's another top tip. If you made a tea and it's too strong, just add a bit of hot water to it, and that should take the edge off. So that's good. What I'm going to do is get some butter in this, probably, I don't know, 2 teaspoons worth, whatever that is, a chunk. It's probably about 100 grams, no 100 grams, fucking hell. It's probably about 20 grams. So that's good. So let's just, and then, so obviously if you're a vegan, don't put that butter in. You could put in a little bit of Nutlex or something, you know, that the vegan spread, but you don't really need it. I mean, just the oil is enough in here, really. You could just add a little extra drizzle of olive oil at this point, because I want a bit of butter or oiliness to help with the coriander that we're going to cook in and then stir around. I'm going to do about, I'll tell you what, I never do this, but I'll just get an actual teaspoon. I normally just sprinkle it and feel what's right. That's about a teaspoon. And then just sort of sprinkle that in. Now this is a really nice thing to use. Carrot and coriander is an amazing, if that was a heaped teaspoon, let's say. Yeah, coriander is a great thing to add into with carrots and courgettes and into this soup. And actually you can use fresh coriander at the end of this if you wanted to, but I haven't got any because I hadn't really planned to do this recipe. So, but that's fine. The time in here will suffice. So now we're just going to stir this around with the coriander so it all just mixes in and just cooks off a little bit. It's quite a subtle flavour, like we don't want to overdo it with anything. So yeah, about a teaspoon of that. And that's all like softening up and taking on a bit of colour and looking beautiful. So that is pretty sweet. I'm going to add a little bit more black pepper. I want a little bit of background heat in this, but I don't want it to be like a chili heat. I find that if you use pepper correctly, build it up in stages, you can actually get a really nice background spiciness into something like this without having to use chili. You just use pepper. It's great. And actually the good thing for pepper, this is a really top tip. If you want pepper flavour, you put it in right at the end. If you want heat from the pepper, you put it in during the cooking process, and that will give you this beautiful, you know, gradual heat build up in it. So yeah, that's another little top tip, the Timmy's top tip. Right, so that's about, I don't know what, small handful, little pinch, whatever you want to call that. Pretty much whatever you've got. That's just what I had on the plant that I could use that wasn't still sort of growing and, you know, didn't look good. So yeah, so that's good. Pop that in, stir that through. Now at this stage I don't really want to cook this off too much more than this. Smelling beautiful, the real fragrance from the coriander and the thyme, that's beautiful. The courgettes have just softened just a bit. Again, I don't really want them to take a whole lot of colour. You could do, but I think this is good. That's looking about right. So let's get our veggie stock. I mean, it's super simple, as you can see. I mean, it doesn't get more simple than this. And then we're just going to pour that stock in, just so it, I'm going to turn this up just so that it brings it up to a simmer. I reckon I'm going to put all that in. So that was just 1.25 litres, which, what's that in cups for you Americans? That was probably 5 cups. Yeah, 5 cups. So fuck it, let's just put all that in. The quantity of liquid is going to depend on how much ingredients you've got in the pan, like how many carrots. And you saw with me, it was like, what, 6 or 7 carrots, 2 courgettes, give or take, because I only had 1.5, but whatever. And you want it to sort of be like this, so liquids here with the sort of veggies kind of freely moving about, so there's a bit of movement and, you know, So that because when we whiz it up, it will thicken. So you just have to remember that. If you've got not enough liquid and too much stuff, you're going to end up with a real thick soup, which you don't really want. So you do want a bit of liquid to it. What you could do is actually have more of this liquid in there. So make up a bit more if you need to. And once you whiz it up, if it feels too thick, just add a bit more in, stir it through until you get it to the sort of consistency you want. So yeah, so that's great. So we're going to let that just come up to temperature. You pop a lid on if you want, and once this is boiling, I'm going to turn it right down to a real gentle simmer and cook that basically just until the carrots are tender enough to whiz up. So again, you don't want to cook the life out of this because you want the carrots to still have flavour in them. So if you cook it for too long, you just kill off all the flavour. So the courgettes will cook a lot quicker than the carrots, so you don't really have to worry. And I want those to be all mushy anyway, so that's okay, because they're kind of more in there for a bit of flavour, but also the creaminess you'll get out of them. So yeah, essentially with the carrots, you just, cook till tender really. So probably 15 minutes like this. I'd say 10 minutes maybe. So it's a super quick soup. So that's just going to come up to a simmer. Let's give that 10 minutes and we'll check on it, maybe 15. And once they're tender, we'll come back and we'll finish it off. And basically finishing off is just whizzing the fucking thing, but well, I'll still do that so you can see what it looks like. So yeah. Right, we're back. So this has had it's probably been somewhere in between 10 and 15 minutes. Now what you should do, if you want to just make sure that they're cooked, the best thing to do is to grab one of the carrots, just with a spoon, and yeah, just using the edge of the spoon, just try and cut through it. And if you can cut through nice and easily, maybe try it. And if it's feeling nice and soft, then you know it's cooked. So I've just done that, so I know that's fine. So yeah, that's perfect. So once you're at that point, what you're going to do is, swap that up. What you're going to do, get your whizzer. I've just got one of these like hand stick things. I'm going to turn it down a touch because I'm going in quite a low pan, and just go through and just sort of push down on each bit and just get them whizzing up gradually, and it will just start thickening up. Now because it's quite shallow, I've got to do it this way, but you'll be able to just put it in and angle it slightly and just start whizzing it up. But if I do that too much, it's going to go everywhere, so I've got to be a little bit careful. So I'm just sort of doing this nice and gently, and then as you go through it, just give it a stir, and you'll see any bits that you've missed, and just put the whizzer straight on top of them and whiz down through. It's kind of the best way to make sure you've got no lumps. I mean, if you wanted to use a food processor or a blender, then you can do that, but just make sure that in the lid normally has a little inner lid which you can take off. So that's in there primarily for putting stuff in while it's whizzing and whizzing up something like this, because it lets the steam escape. If you don't do that and you whiz it, the pressure from the steam will actually blow the lid off, and you'll get hot soup over everything and yourself. And hot soup somehow manages to get hotter than it's physically possible to get. Like it's somehow able to achieve a heat higher than it should theoretically be able to get to. So just be careful. This is looking really good, and the thickness is about right for me, I think. Remember what I said at this point: if it's too thick and you've not used enough stock initially, make up some more stock, or if you've got some other stuff spare, and just pour that in to thin it down a bit. If you don't have any stock left for whatever reason, just a bit of water is fine. It will just thin it down, and it's not going to dilute the flavour too much, but just be aware that it will dilute the flavour a bit, so a bit of stock's probably better. This is looking pretty good. So yeah, so there we go. That is looking great. Just give it a final little stir and just make sure, probably before you wash the thing, or wash the whizzer, just make sure there's no lumps, but that's looking pretty good. That's about perfect. And like I said, adding some coriander in this, like either chop it up and chuck it in now, or whiz it up when you put it in and whiz it with it, and that'll blend it through really nicely. And that coriander just gives it a really nice fragrance. So at this point, give it a try. Watch out, it'll be hot. and then see if it needs any seasoning. But oh, that's good. That's about right. It's got a nice little pepperiness to it. There's enough salt. It's absolutely fine. If anything, I want it slightly undersalted because I'll add a bit of fresh parmesan on top of this when I serve it. So yeah, so that's it. I mean, it's actually too early for me to really eat this. It's only like 10 in the morning, so a bit early for soup. But this is great as a lunch with some crusty bread, or a bit fancier with like some gnocchi and some stuff, which we're going to do in a few days. Yeah, we'll come back to that recipe probably in 2 days' time. I might do it tomorrow, we'll see. But I got some people visiting in the next few days, so I'm not sure I have time to actually film and edit anything. But that's great. I mean, as a lunch, take that into work, heat it up in the microwave. You know, awesome. Just, you know, get some, bring some bread with you, put it in the toaster. Perfect. So yeah, so there we go. There's my beautiful carrot and courgette soup. Hope you like the recipe. Give it a go. Let me know what you think. And then yeah, check back in a couple of days, and we'll do my fancy little twist on what to actually do with this soup to kind of elevate it a bit and make it something a bit fancier for like a dinner party or to impress your mates or something. So yeah, so we'll be back with that in a couple of days. So in the meantime, I'm gonna chill out. Probably cook some lunch in a minute, or have this for lunch a bit later. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, cheers for tuning in. Hit subscribe, like, share with your mates. Get on Instagram at Timmy_foodie, and stay up to date with all my posts. Yeah, we'll be back soon with another video. Cheers, guys.